There's Kim Jong-un right there, live on your screen right now, walking into position. Obviously, he is alone, unintended, coming in. Here comes the President of the United States. And here are the two gentlemen. Let's watch the moment. And just like that, history has been made. We have Anderson Cooper and Jim Clapper with us. We're watching them right now. The men speaking, I guess, Jim, with who is anticipated to be their translators, right?
That's the way it looks to me. And by the way, I do have some concerns about gauging people through translators. That's a very difficult thing to do because there are huge cultural differences here. My own experience over many years of dealing with Koreans and trying to gauge the measure of a man or woman that you're dealing with through a translator, it's not the same as real estate in New York.
Now, we do hear them speaking to each other. Do we know if Kim Jong-un speaks any English? I'm assuming President Trump isn't speaking Korean.
Yes, I don't know if he speaks English or not. He may understand some, yeah, from his experience at schooling in Switzerland.
A little surprised at the apparent warmth in the body language there. You know, not just a handshake, but an arm, held, and a hand on his back. Culturally, is that something that Kim is used to? What does that say to you?
Well, probably not. Not too many people in North Korea do that, but the occasion called for it, I thought. And so that's, brief body language there. That's a good sign.
Anderson, to you.
Chris, here with Christian Amanpour, also Ambassador Yoon and Jim Shudo as well. For all the waiting, it was quick, but fascinating to see.
It was quick. It was really fascinating, and there was body language. I mean, you saw the arms outstretched. Obviously, President Trump didn't smile. That was something that, or at least not at the beginning. Perhaps he did as he was walking on. But Kim Jong-un did smile quite broadly as they were walking off. And, Kim Jong-un has had the old hug and arm tug when he was with President Moon Jae-in of South Korea. And he's had his, good, thorough handshakes with President Xi of China. And I think that this is pretty amazing. Secretary of State Pompeo said yesterday, for all the talk, for all the hopes, for all the everything, nobody can make the decisions except for the two people who will be in that room together. And those are those two people. And I must say, at this precise moment, you do have to remember that just a few months ago, it was all talk of war and bluster and fire and fury and destruction. And then, to be frank, Kim turned on a dime over New Year with his New Year's speech. He took the opportunity to go to South Korea, or to send his delegation to South Korea, his trusted lieutenants, including his sister, to South Korea for what they called the Peace Olympics. And then he gave, through the South Korean president, this remarkable invitation to meet with the President of the United States. So he has actually been almost in the driving seat from the beginning. And talk is better than war. Yeah. What did Churchill say? Jaw, not war.
Ambassador Yoon, I mean, you've spent a lot of time in meetings with North Koreans over many years. What do you think is going to take place? How important is this face-to-face in private?
I think it's very important. And the way they met.
Wait, let's listen in.
Yeah.
I feel really great. Yep. We're going to have a great discussion, and I think tremendous success. It'll be tremendously successful. And it's my honor, and we will have a terrific relationship.
우리는 아주 굉장히 성공할 걸로 믿습니다. 그리고 아주 만나게 돼서 굉장히 영광스럽게 생각합니다. 아주 훌륭한 관계를 가지고 있고 아주 전혀 의심 없이 좋은 관계를 우리가 맺을 거라고 생각합니다.
여기까지 오는 길이 그리 쉬운 길은 아니었죠.
Well, it was not easy to get here.
우리한테는 우리 발목을 잡는 그 과거가 있고 또 그릇된 국민과 발행들이 우리 때로는 우리 눈과 귀를 가리고 있었는데 우리 모든 것을 이겨내고 이 자리까지 왔습니다.
The past worked as fetters on our wings, and the old prejudices and practices worked as obstacles on our way forward, but we overcame all of them and we are here today. That's true.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This way. Thank you.
All right, again, here we are seeing the President of the United States and the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un. We saw the handshake. Now, a second moment. Armed, I guess, with only their translators. We don't think there'll be any policy people in this meeting with them or any kind of security. But here they are having a second press opportunity where President Trump was asked how he feels. Now, you can see the media is being sent out of the room right now because obviously this is going to be a private meeting. Jim Clapper, the president, says this is an honor. We're going to have a terrific relationship going forward. Kim Jong-un responds through his translator that there were a lot of obstacles to get to this point. It was not easy to get here, but we made it through. Now we're looking at the schedule of what they're going to do today. We don't know if this meeting face-to-face with no other policy people will be just minutes or maybe even hours. What do you make of what's been said so far, and what do you anticipate as the dynamic in that room?
Well, so far, so good. I noticed a very similar format as in the press brace in the Oval Office. So, and the president adapted the same pose that he always adapts when he's in the Oval in a similar circumstance. So I think from what you can tell from this, from the optics, it's off to a good start.
Who leads this conversation at the table? What are the rules?
Well, I think the protocol is that Kim Jong-un, who's been a head of state longer, is I think by definition, by protocol, the senior. But I suspect that President Trump will be kind of leading the discussion.
Now, you had said earlier you are wary of only having translators and trying to get a read specifically on North Koreans that way. Why?
Well, it's one thing to gauge the measure of someone when you're dealing in the same language and the same culture. And President Trump's confidence about his ability to size people up is quite true in an American context. This is very different. The cultural norms for Korea are different than ours. And it's hard to read. You can't interpret body language and the completeness of a communication, interpersonal communication, when you have that barrier. And the other thing is, of course, you want to have confidence in the renderings of both translators, that they are accurately rendering what you've said in Korean, and conversely, that you're hearing back in English the correct rendition.
Who do you use as a translator in this kind of instance? Do you have somebody who's pulling double duty? You know, somebody who has some type of policy sophistication as well?
You could. You could have someone, and typically when translator, in my experience with using translators, and I've done this a lot with Koreans, is translators will take notes, their own rough shorthand notes of what their principal is saying, and then will use their notes to convey the message in the other language. So there will be, I think, a semblance of note-taking here just by virtue of the way translators normally do business.
Do you expect it to be brief? Do you think the two men could go an hour or more, or do you think that they'll leave the substance up to seconds and thirds?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. But whatever estimate you make, you have to double it to allow for the translation. So if you say you have an hour meeting, it's really 30 minutes of discussion.
Everything's said twice.
Exactly.
Of course. Let me ask you something. Did you ever think you would see this moment?
Absolutely not. Ever since I served as a director of intelligence of U.S. Forces of Korea in the mid-'80s and followed the peninsula ever since, and when I got to go to Pyongyang in 2014, I never thought I'd see this sight, and I certainly never thought I'd see the sight of Kim Jong-un and President Moon greeting each other pretty warmly at the DMZ at Panmunjom.
Just a quick reminder for people what was said here. President Trump said when asked moments ago How do you feel? He said, I feel great. This is an honor for me to be here, and we will have a terrific relationship going forward. Kim Jong-un was gracious and said there were a lot of obstacles on the way here, but we overcame all of them. The right thing to say at the right time. Yes?
Exactly.
And this, of course, the historic moment. Jim Clapper, former director of national intelligence, has been with the North Koreans, has negotiated with them. He says thought that he would never see this moment. So what was Trump able to do that Obama, Bush, Clinton, Bush before him could not do?
Well, I think, Chris, this had more to do with the North Koreans than anything we did. And I think that the North Koreans achieved whatever it is they thought they needed to achieve in the way of a nuclear deterrent, so that they could do this, come to a negotiating table, not as supplicants, which has always been the case in the past, where they've been the inferior, we've been the superior. They have reached a point, whatever it is, that they have confidence in their nuclear capability as a deterrent.